Hi, everyone. I am Philip. We are 64 Audio, an in-ear monitor manufacturer out of Vancouver, Washington. We make universal fitting in-ear monitors and custom fitting in-ear monitors for musicians, audio engineers, singers, audiophiles, music enthusiasts, gamers, and kind of everyone in between. Our goal is to try and bring people closer to their music, whether they're monitoring themselves playing music or they are listening to their favorite recordings or gaming, that sort of thing. We try to make products that reproduce that as accurately and as musically as possible. So in some of our previous educational content, we've gone into detail about in-ear monitor setups, and primarily in-ear monitor setups for the kind of professional musician and singer side of our customer base. And that's stuff like wireless in-ear monitoring, personal in-ear monitoring mixers, wired in-ear monitors, separate soundboards for mixing monitors, mixing front of house. All of that can be found in our how to set up your IEMs video. But we haven't done anything specifically relating to kind of the other half of our customer base, which is audiophiles and, just general music enthusiasts. And that's a big portion of our customer base. Today, we're going to go over every type of setup that you could have when listening to your in-ear monitors, everything from the most simple to the most complicated. For some of you, this will be old news. The community is really vast and there's just tons of stuff out there to listen to. So we wanted to kind of show every type of peripheral gear that you might need in your setup if you're just listening as an enthusiast or a studio professional or, full kind of fledged audiophile. And, forgive us if we miss anything. We tried to get as wide of an array of gear as possible. We even had to cut because I forgot a very important one, which we'll get to in a bit. So here it all is. And it starts from the most important part for us is the in-ear monitors. So the in-ear monitors are wired. They require amplification. It's not something like a speaker that requires like a big amplifier that, takes a bunch of power and has to drive big speaker cones. It's typically something that could be, or it has always been powered from, headphone amps that are built into devices, like the laptop, for example. Most laptops and computers still have the headphone jack, and behind that headphone jack is a headphone amplifier. It's not just passive signal coming out of there. It is something that's amplifying the signal in order for your headphones to be able to actually reproduce it. So this is kind of the most simplified version of using your in-ear monitors or your headphones is you can just plug them into the headphone output of your device, whether it's a laptop. Some phones might still have it. Some phones actually build in really high quality DACs. Some of the Samsung or LG ones have good DACs built into them, but there are still plenty of products that have built-in headphone amplifiers. And this is probably the only one that I still own that still has a headphone amplifier built in. And everything else requires some sort of external device. So yeah, your in-ear monitors directly into your laptop, that is super basic, or your in-ear monitors directly into your phone. Second layer of complexity, let's get into dongles. So this one here is probably really familiar to all of you, the Apple dongle. One of the more prolific reviewers in the audiophile kind of in-ear monitor space has a lot to say about the Apple dongle, a lot of positive to say about the Apple dongle. And I would tend to agree. I think Apple does a really great job when it comes to R&D, when it comes to quality regarding audio, regarding video. And the dongle is great. It sounds really good. I mean, especially for whatever it costs nowadays, $10, $20. It is actually really hard to beat. It's a great sounding little thing. And you notice it's not just the same thing as a charger. It's actually, this part right here is bigger than you'd think. It's not the same thing as, this little guy. You see the difference in width between the two. So the circuitry is all built into this part right here. It's Great sounding digital to analog conversion. I believe it's capped at some sort of sample rate, something like 44.1K. So, there are some limitations, of course, and there probably are some limitations as far as output when it comes to some of the higher impedance headphones, some of the lower sensitivity headphones. And, there are some limitations as far as in-ear monitors that have really high sensitivity when it comes to noise floor, and then the IEMs that have really low impedance that sometimes gives your mobile device a bit of a hard time delivering the voltage that it needs. We've actually found that with certain, our IEM specifically, you can get the amplifier in some of those mobile devices to distort at a certain, it just goes from sounding clear to, like 75%. It just goes, just total distortion. And has something to do with the low output impedance. The next step from a really simplified kind of dongle experience is the upgraded dongle. So this is something that we carry on our website. This is the Dragonfly Cobalt made by Audioquest. They make 3 variations of it. The Cobalt is the most expensive at, I believe, $330 nowadays. And then there's one at $220, and then there's one at like $115. The red and the black are the less expensive ones. This is kind of a step up. It not only has a better DAC, it has, it can actually play files that are at a higher sample rate. I believe it's up to 98K sample rate. Great sounding headphone amplifier, low noise, really low output impedance, which is something really important to us when it comes to especially products that don't have our linear impedance design. The headphone output impedance can affect the frequency response based on how high that is. So something like this. So when you open this up, it's just a USB little DAC. So this can either plug directly into your laptop, plug directly into your computer, if you have one of these USBs still built into your device, or the Cobalt, I believe, is the only one that comes with this little adapter, the Dragon Tail, but this will convert it to USB-C, and you can use this with, the USB-C. For example, on my laptop, I need the USB-C, or you can use this on the Android phones that have this type of connector. And then for Apple devices, you can use one of these converters here to the Lightning. And I believe Audioquest recommends using the camera adapter, so it has the USB and the charging port on there as well. For some reason, they say that has a better audio quality. Not quite sure how true that is. I'm sure I believe them, but it's not dramatic, I will say. Yeah, it's really easy to plug and play, and it's a simple and fairly cost-effective way to upgrade the sound of your IEMs or your headphones. That is the Audioquest Dragonfly DAC. The next step is something like a DAC similar to the Mojo and similar to this little guy by iFi. We'll get to that one in a sec. It is similar in that it's mobile. You don't need to plug it into power. It has a battery. Unlike the dongle, which is powered by the phone, this is, requires charging. So it can, I believe the new Mojos, the Mojo 2 has a function where it will kind of go into desktop mode, similar to Hugo 2, where if it's kept on a charge for a certain amount of time, it will stop charging the battery and it'll just, be powered directly from the USB power port thing. So this is also a digital to analog converter and a headphone amplifier. It's an upgraded version of what this device is and an upgraded version of what this device is. It performs the same function. It amplifies the signal coming from your device. So it converts it from a digital signal to an analog signal and then amplifies it for your headphones and your in-ear monitors. Chord does an incredible job. We carried the Mojo for a number of years, and I believe this is the Mojo 2, which released a few months ago. A few updates to the classic design. And yeah, it's great. It does the job. It has a really low output impedance, so it will give you the most accurate frequency response possible, whether you're using our products or anybody else's. It's got the headphone jacks on this side, the USB stuff on this side. So similar to this, it plugs in via USB, and it has a couple other things. I believe it's coax as well, and the optical out here. Yeah, there's a little bit more cool stuff with it I'll get into in a bit. And then something like this as well, similar type of thing. It's the iFi iDSD. Wait, hold on. Hang on. It's called something else. The micro. Okay. So this is the iFi Micro iDSD, the signature version. Similar to the Mojo, it is battery powered, so you got to keep it charged up. There are some benefits to battery powered stuff compared to, going right off a dongle, in that it doesn't use the phone's power source to kind of deliver voltage. And in some cases, it can still kind of top out and give you some trouble based off of how much of a hard time your device is having delivering that voltage to, let's say, a really low impedance in your monitor. With the battery powered devices that has their own power source, the battery, so it's not relying on the phone's power source to be able to deliver that voltage. So similar thing here, you have the USB, whether you want to use it with a computer or, let's say an Android device where you convert it to USB-C, or you can use it with an iOS device. Same sort of thing, plug and play. You don't have to, choose anything. You don't need special drivers. I'm not sure about PC, but as a Mac user, it's just kind of plug and play, ready to go. This goes all the way up to, the crazy high sample rates. Anything I listen to, it kind of tops out at 192K. And then it does DSD as well, which is kind of a whole other thing that I frankly don't fully understand and probably won't be able to go into too much detail on. That kind of brings up a good point. Before we even kind of talk about plugging in the IEMs into whatever your source is, we talk about kind of the actual source, which is the music files. I'm sure a lot of you already know all of the differences between, services like Spotify, Apple, those kinds of things, where those services really shine at playlisting, discoverability, algorithmic, based, kind of preference-based, feeding you information, feeding you music that you might enjoy. And then there are services that have higher quality files that they actually will stream. You could stream and download things like that. I've been using Amazon Music HD for the longest time. It seemed to be, at least when it released, the only service that had kind of the largest library of really high resolution audio files, 24-bit, 192K, up to 192K. Tidal has their kind of CD quality files, and then their NQA stuff, which is a whole other thing that I probably am not qualified to get into. And then Apple Music most recently started doing all of their kind of high res, or whatever they call their high resolution versions of the files. I like the functionality of Amazon's app a little bit better for my workflow. And then you have things like Qobuz and Deezer and probably a couple others, but some of the main ones, just kind of keep in mind the quality of the file that you're listening to. With higher resolving products, you will hear the differences in audio quality more and more the more resolving your system is, where you might not hear the difference between, even a high quality MP3 with a really high resolution track on some, mono Bluetooth speaker on a set of really resolving like a Forte Blanc or a U18T. You will really hear the difference between those types of music files. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, hopefully don't stir too much controversy, with all the people talking about the different streaming services and all that kind of stuff. Don't want to get into DSD. That's a whole kind of black magic that I don't really understand, the whole single bit thing. So we covered this, similar to the Mojo. It's just a battery powered. There's a lot of different functionality on this unit in particular. You have like bass boost, you have different sensitivity levels, kind of fun to play around with. It also has, just regular single-ended RCA outputs in case you just want to use this as a DAC at home on your system. One cool thing about Mojo is that it comes with this little guy. Although it is fairly difficult to set up, I've had some trouble with it and some people have some trouble setting it up. It does turn this into a wireless solution. So I believe it's Bluetooth and they have some sort of Wi-Fi streaming thing that you can do with it. So this will connect to your device wirelessly and you plug your in-ear monitors into this. So it gives you the same sort of, high quality digital to analog conversion as well as, the high quality headphone amp built into this without needing to be tethered between your source and the actual output device. And then similar to those two things, the Hugo 2, another product made by Chord Electronics. This is one that I've used at my desk for the longest time. Actually belongs to our owner, Vitaly. Hopefully he forgot that I still have it. But it's really great. Same sort of thing, even higher quality digital analog conversion. Great headphone amplifier, gives you a couple options as far as connectivity. But similar thing, it's a battery powered. It is semi-mobile, meaning you could kind of walk around with this thing. If you've been to some of the audiophile trade shows, you'll see people walking around with, these stacks, kind of all of this stuff together. And some people enjoy that. Some people, I can't imagine kind of walking around with a large unit like this, but you can. It's battery powered, still works that way. I have this on my desk. It works really nicely. Same sort of thing, plug and play, DAC amp. Now we get to kind of the larger non-mobile devices that still require another source. So it still requires you to be playing music from, your streaming service or your server or, CD player or whatever. And one of them, another one that we carry on our website is RME's ADI DAC, ADI2 DAC FS. I believe that's the full name. So this is a desktop DAC amplifier. It requires power, so you can't kind of be mobile with it. Obviously, it's humongous, but requires power. It's also USB connectivity and has a couple other features as well if you want to use it in your 2-channel system. But for our purposes here, we're talking about the headphones. This has a couple headphone amplifiers built in. So you have something built for higher sensitivity, things like IEMs, and then something for lower sensitivity, things that require more power, like, headphones, things like that. And with this, you get a lot of features. You get a lot of tinkering ability, parametric EQ, bass boost, treble boost, all kinds of different filters that you can mess around with. So this is kind of that next step up. If you're an audiophile that wants, something that's incredible and doesn't have to be mobile, this is something that I really recommend, and we sell it on our website if you're into it. It's really cool. And then the kind of on the complete opposite end, if this is like one end of the spectrum, this is the other end of the spectrum. This is when we get into what in the audiophile space is considered separates. So separating your amplifier, your preamplifier, everything, all of the major components in your system, separating them out so that each one can be built to kind of the best possible capability in its respective field. So here we have the iFi, iDSD, and iCAN stack, the signature versions of it. They were kind enough to kind of trade some product for these two things. So we've had these for a long time. We've been using them for photos and, demoing products and stuff like that. This top piece is a DAC. It's, an incredible DAC. It does, every type of sample rate. It does DSD, does all kinds of cool stuff. And it is a really high quality unit. It even has some tubes built in so you can kind of turn that on based on your preferences right here. It's pretty cool, really fun unit to play with. But it does have a headphone amp built into it, but the reason why we're kind of showing it in this way is, although all of these products are DAC amps, we call them, kind of internally DAC amps, digital analog converter and headphone amp. This is actually just a headphone amplifier. So if you look on the back here, it's just analog input. So you have single-ended connections like RCA, and you have balanced connections, XLR. That's pretty much it. There's this little HDMI thing, but I don't know what that's for. It's just a headphone amplifier, so it requires an analog signal. And it gets an analog signal, in this case, from this digital to analog converter. So the major components of these products are separated here so that you have digital analog converter on top of a headphone amplifier. And, these also come with, various kind of bass boosts and spatial things that you can mess around with, all kinds of really cool features. And there's plenty of other products like DCS's big Lena stack if you're really interested in kind of going way out there as far as budget. And, there's all kinds of products out there. Last couple ones to make note of, and this is something that, although it's really popular in the kind of headphone audiophile space, I think most people outside of that world would be surprised to find out that players still exist. You'd think that they died off with the iPod, you'd think that they died off with iPod and Zune, but no, they're still alive and well. Sony probably makes the most iconic version of it, this gold-plated, I forget what the model name of it is, WM1Z. And the Walkman WM1Z. So this is the previous version. They've updated it since. But yeah, it's kind of like an iPod. I mean, in the functionality sense of it. You load music onto here and you listen to music from this as the source. Unlike the iPod and the Zune, of course, you can actually play high resolution files on here, DSD files. This is made to be the kind of ultimate version of those. So, everything from the headphone amplifier, you have the single-ended output, you have a balanced output, Sony's Pentacon connection on here, and all kinds of companies make versions of the DAP, the player, so to speak. So Sony, Astel and Kern, folks like that. But this is a player. You don't need your phone for this. You load your music onto here, whether it's high-resolution files or MP3s or whatever you have. If you want a dedicated device just for playing music, these are still being made, and they're being made really well by companies like Sony. And then kind of something worth mentioning, and we'll probably see more of this in the coming years, is the ability to make your in-ear monitors wireless. Linus Tech Tips did a video recently where he kind of touched on something that I thought was really interesting, and that's audio products, specifically speakers and headphones, things like that, are really meant to live for a really long time. They're meant to be kind of a lifetime product. You see this all the time. You see, speakers being handed down from your father, your grandfather. You're able to, use a turntable that was around from the, 70s. You're able to use, old receivers from back in the day. But with the trend of wireless products, things like AirPods, wireless headphones, the batteries and kind of the electrical components that have a much shorter lifespan are kind of intrinsically tied to the audio reproduction side of things. And so when that fails, you're not able to replace the battery. You're not able to use that speaker anymore, or that, headphone or earphone. So you end up having to throw the whole thing away, as opposed to, a great set of in-ear monitors that, if well maintained and used properly, can, live with you forever. So here's the solution. You take the wireless aspect, you take the wireless portion, and you create an adapter like this. So it makes it wireless without tying it directly to the product itself. So this in particular, this one kind of sits behind the ear and it connects to your phone, whatever device you're using. It's actually pretty comfortable. I like the way that it feels. It kind of makes the in-ear hug to your ear nicely. This one by TRN is a fairly low quality, I'd say. It introduces a fairly high noise floor. It's not really great sounding, but it's cool for the functionality of it. There's a microphone built into it. You can talk on the phone. There's some higher quality versions out there. Look into it for yourself. There's some ones that go around the neck, things like that. But yeah, this is kind of the overview of IEM setups as a music enthusiast or audiophile. I'm sure, like I said, we missed something, but this should cover most of your bases. With any of these products, really, you can get a really great sound from our in-ear monitors or, whatever earphones or headphones that you're using. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more educational content on our YouTube channel. Go on our blog to learn more about in-ear monitors and in-ear monitor setups. Thanks.